In the movies, they have this trope that's called the origin story. For every character, we have to know how they became the person they are today. Origin stories are like in Spider-Man when Peter Parker gets bit and then has to learn how to use these powers. Or when Elsa accidentally magics her sister and then learns how to use that magic for good. Or when Bruce Wayne falls down that well for the first time and is attacked by bats and then trains to become Batman. Or when they went back and did X-Men First Class, or Rise of the Planet of the Apes, or how we found out how Maleficent became the Mistress of Evil, or all those Star Wars prequels that we don't talk about. What I've always noticed, though, is the Bible has no idea how to do a proper origin story. Take Isaiah's story. First, he has an amazing vision. We're off to a good start here. He sees the wholeness of heaven with the throne of God sitting on the temple in Jerusalem. Next, he realizes how dangerous it is to be in God's presence since he is a sinful person. But then a seraph comes down and burns away his sin with a coal from the heavenly temple. Basically the same thing as Spider-Man getting bit, right? Next, a quest is presented to him, and Isaiah volunteers to take this quest. Think King Arthur in the search for the Holy Grail, or Frodo and the Ring. Except Frodo's quest was to save Middle-earth, and Rey's quest was to take the lightsaber back to Luke and become a Jedi, and Moana's quest was to save her village from a curse that had been killing all the crops. You know what Isaiah's quest is? Go tell the people, you all are to become like Pharaoh and the Egyptians who enslaved you before, hard-hearted and thick-headed, and remain that way until your entire land is returned to its pre-creation state, unordered and uninhabited, wild and waste, utterly destroyed. What type of quest is that? That is not the quest of a hero, is it? That's not what heroes do. Simon Peter's story is even worse. First, Jesus brings crowds over this small group of fishermen and interrupts their work to make use of their boats. And Simon, I would think reluctantly, obliges. Then, when Jesus is finished preaching, he tells Simon to go fishing. Simon is even more reluctant at this point. Master, we've been working all night. We're tired. We want to go home. And we've caught nothing. The fish have got our scent, and they're not coming near us right now. And pardon me for saying this, but you're a rabbi. What do you know about fishing? Fishing's our trade. But even though I know it sounds ridiculous, you are a rabbi, and I'll do what you say. And so he rows out and throws down his net. And crazy thing happens. It overflows with fish. Peter gets caught up in the intensity of the moment, calling James and John to come over and help. And together they work hard to pull this whole catch into both the boats. But when Simon Peter finally catches his breath and realizes what has happened, he freaks out. Get away from me, Lord. I am a sinner. A miracle just happened. And just like Isaiah, Peter knows it is dangerous for a sinner to be in the presence of the divine. So what do we have so far? A tired and reluctant fisherman does what is asked of him and then freaks out when a miracle happens. And Jesus thinks, I can work with this. Follow me, Peter. From now on, you're fishing for people. That's not an origin story. At best, it's the story of Jar Jar Binks or Pippin, not a real hero, definitely not the most important disciple in all the Bible, right? The Bible is filled with origin stories like these, and none of them go the way you'd expect. The heroes fail and mess up all the time. They barely make it, and those who do make it end up losing it at the end anyway. And when they are doing good, the things they are doing are regular things that don't make other people happy. So maybe the hardest part of the things they have to do is to actually listen to God and to follow God's wisdom instead of their own path. We've been looking at the origin story of Abraham and with those in catechism a few weeks ago. And in that story, it's like, well, God said, go here and do this. And Abraham went to this new land and said, this looks great. I'm going to go down to Egypt. And then God said, no, come back here to this land. And Abraham says, oh, this looks great, and you promised me a kid. I'm going to go make it happen this way. And God's like, that's not what I wanted for you. Come back here to this area. And Abraham's like, this land looks great, but I'm going to leave again and go somewhere else. And he just keeps messing up. In the Lutheran Church, I think one of our weaknesses is we really don't have a lot of origin stories to tell. At least not ones most of us remember. Many of us were baptized as babies, claimed as children of God, this awesome superhero title, but we don't have recollection of it. We don't know the story of what happened. In other denominations, people are baptized as adults, or they have moments where they give themselves to Christ. And we have good theological reasons why we don't do that, but we also lose something. When almost no one here can say how they became a Christian other than, I've been a Christian all my life. Which isn't really that great of a story. I mean, not worth telling around the dinner table, right? Instead, in the Lutheran Church, we tend to talk about call stories. What was it that called Tom and Linda to run Tosa Cares? Or to make Jerry so passionate about justice? I bet all of us have a story of God moving us to do something new, the way that he moved Isaiah and Peter to do something new, to be someone we didn't think we could be, to go somewhere we weren't expecting, to discover an unexpected joy and wholeness that we weren't looking for. In the year 2000, a new pastor came to my hometown. I was in high school, and though I thought this guy was pretty amazing, I also found him intimidating. He was the type of guy I just couldn't say no to. And so when he said he had this leadership camp opportunity that he thought I should go to, I shook my head no as hard as I could, and my mouth said yes. I was betrayed by my own voice. I have no idea why he thought I should go to this camp. I was not a leader. You may look at me now and say, Pat, but I was not a leader. At best, I was always at the edge of groups or going my own way entirely. Still, I ended up going, kicking and screaming all the way, my pastor would tell my mom. But when I got there, that was the first moment my eyes were open to how the Holy Spirit moves. That was the first time I saw a Christian community that was deep and meaningful and accepting, full of love and care and holding someone during tears that eventually are embraced into laughter. I got a vision of the true richness of worship, able to pull every string of the heart. The moment is so long ago now, and even then I had a hard time telling the story in a way that made sense to other people. But the moment that really stuck with me was the night we gathered for worship. This was, I think, like the fourth night at camp. We sat in a circle in a low-lit room with candles burning in the center. A guitar was playing Holden Evening Prayer, and we all had had such a full day that emotions poured out of us as we praised God. I know that when I get into those moments, I just kind of curl up in joy. But in the middle of this, one of my friends broke down in tears and left the room. Another friend went after her. I found out years later that those tears were about a deep wound in her life that had been inflicted by an abusive father. When worship was over, us youth had made a habit of gathering at the campus fountain. And we waited there, a group of about 20 of us, until our two friends were able to come back and join us. And when the one friend brought the other friend who'd been crying back, we all embraced her. She was still crying, but the love we all shared, and we'd only known each other, like I said, for 4 days at this point, soon turned everything into laughter. Next thing I knew, we were all splashing around the fountain as if reenacting that opening scene from the movie Godspell, where they're all getting baptized and getting washed up. It was a renewal of baptism like no other. That camp planted the first seeds of the desire to do ministry in me. I wouldn't have called it that then. Instead, what I got there was a call to create Christian community like the one I had found. To help others see what it's like to be embraced by Christ, loved by everyone around me, and always welcome to be fully myself no matter what me is in that moment, even if it is broken in tears. Building Christian community remains a central part of who I am. Now, I gotta admit, even today, I still have barely a clue on how to do that. But it is a call that originated in this camp. This is what people together is meant to be like, God said to me. Take what you have learned here and use it to invite people to embrace my love like you did all this week. I'm not a superhero, at least not like in the movies, but I am a child of God. And I believe you guys are too, right? Isaiah had no qualifications. He was a sinner, yet God called him to speak the truth. Peter had no qualifications. He was a sinner as well, yet Jesus called him to fish for people. People might think I have qualifications, but honestly, I was a mess for a long time. And now that I've got most of the mess from my childhood figured out, now I've got the mess from my adulthood to work on as well. Yet I know God has called me to be part of making Christian community. What about you? You're neither more nor less special than Peter, but you are baptized, most of you. You are children of God. You've got the Spirit, right? I got Spirit, yes I do. We said that a few weeks ago. And the Spirit has given you gifts. What has God called you to do with all that grace? What crazy, unexpected adventures is Christ inviting you on today? What's your call story? Maybe you have an answer to this question. If you do, I would love to hear it, seriously. Maybe you don't have an answer to this question. If you don't, I'd love to walk with you as we figure it out together. You are the children of God. Let's see what super things we can do today. Amen.